Alright, as always, if you go out to the P drive for the class, there's a folder with today's date on it, and if you copy that folder over to your htdocs folder, what you're going to see is now not only does the homework, customers, and for Mark, in honor of Mark, I put the Packer table zebra striping in there. Alright, didn't have the zebra striping before. Now the orders works. I didn't do any changes. I just reinstalled a old version of it I had. I wanted to go in and make this colored and stuff, but I just didn't do it. So if I put in 1, 2, 3 and hit submit, it shows me the order, you know, the date, etc. And if I click on details, it's going to make me run through the whole thing again. I wanted to fix that. I just didn't have time to. And it shows you every product that was part of that order. I wanted to set this up so it just showed everything on one screen as opposed to on separate screens. I just left it the way it was. Alright? So last time we went over the home page, we went over the customers page, bless you, but we didn't talk about, for the customers page, we didn't talk about the actual edit, we didn't talk about the actual delete. So we're going to talk about those now, then I'll go over quickly the stuff in orders and in order details. On Thursday, I will go over the reports, which I haven't totally implemented yet. Now, everybody please listen. You don't have to look, but please listen. This is the plan, just so you know. This is the plan. Okay, a lot of times plans are made, but they don't come to fruition the way you want them to. But this is my plan. Is Thursday I'm going to go over the reports part. Again, that shouldn't take, half an hour or so. Then next Tuesday, next Thursday will both be lab because your last assignment is due next week. So you'll have lab the entire week. Then when we come back, it's the week of the 1st. We have the week of the 1st and the week of the 8th. So we have 4 classes. No, that's what I said. Oh, you're right. Next Tuesday will be lab. You're right. Well, Thursday you can have lab while you're having turkey. All right? But so what I plan on doing during the break next week is I'm planning on going back and rewriting this twice. I'm going to rewrite it, both times I rewrite it, I'm going to rewrite it using object-oriented PHP. First time I rewrite it with object-oriented PHP, I'm going to use the same MySQL-I stuff that we use now, but whereas now, when we do this, you probably saw me do this earlier, you'll say, for example, MySQL-I underscore select, that's not a good one, close. All right, you've seen that. When you do it with the true object-oriented, you do it like that. Not like that's a big thing, but I'll try to make those changes because that shouldn't be a lot of changes. All right? So I'll try to do that. But then the other thing I want to try to do is, I think I mentioned this, but we haven't talked about it. That's PHP Data Objects. That's the generic way of writing this because it's not tied to MySQL. And the advantage of using PDO is your input doesn't have to come from a MySQL database. It doesn't even have to come from a database. You can grab stuff out of a comma-separated variable file, or you can grab stuff out of a spreadsheet, etc. That's what I'm going to try to do during the break, is rewrite this thing twice. Once using MySQL-I the object-oriented way, and once doing PDO. The good news is if I can get just the first one done, if I can get the MySQL-I done, then I have the next week when we come back to try to finish up the PDO stuff. All right, that's the plan. And even on those, I'll lecture no more than an hour a day the days that we come back. All right? All right. So let's take a look at the code that's associated with this. So last time we talked about everything in the CSS folder, everything in the database folder, everything in the images folder, everything in the includes folder. All right, we also went over the customers, we went over the index, we went over the MySQL Connect. So what's left, what we have not discussed yet, are the files that will now be in blue. Those 5 files. Out of those 5 files, the one that's here, whoops, that one, the reports, we're not going to talk about because I didn't finish it yet. So what I want to do is bring up these 4 files today and go over them between now and 4 o'clock. All right, so that's the plan. So we'll start with the delete customer. Why? Because that one came up first. All right, so we'll start with the delete customer. This stuff by now should make sense to you. All right, page title, the include, just a thing on the top that says you're actually attempting to delete a customer. So that one that you see right there, once I click customers and I click delete, and it comes up and it says delete customer, that's this. That should make sense to everybody. All right, so now it says check for a valid user ID through a get or a post. So what that's saying is what you want to make sure doesn't happen is the following. Okay, that is kind of what Mike had talked about a while back. Okay, now notice what it says. It's got this delete customer, PHP ID, ID equals, etc. So, but if I grab this, and I'm going to go back to the home page, then I'm going to go back to here and see if I can just prepend that on, or put that onto the end, append that on, I guess. And if I hit enter, don't know what it did, if anything. Didn't like it. That's actually a good thing. The only way I should be able to get to the delete page is that way. Does that make sense? All right. And that's what I tried to do there. And I thought, you know, again, this stuff has all been tested. So this is saying that if either you're coming in through a get or you're coming in through a post, all right, if either one of them are okay, if there's an actual number in there, set the ID equal to that number that you just passed in. Otherwise, the page has been accessed in error. So you shouldn't be able to just get to that page by itself. So in other words, if I come back here, see that? The page has been accessed in error. We're getting that because there's no ID associated with it. Does that make sense to everyone? So that's what we're checking right here. This is saying if you came in with a get, fine. If you came in with a post, fine. All right? But otherwise, say you've been accessed in error, this is another way, you know, this is just basically bringing the footer stuff in and it's exiting. It's saying just basically get the heck out. All right? So if we get to here, if we do get to right there, it's valid. All we know is that we've got a number in there. I shouldn't even say that. We don't even know if it's a valid number, but there's a number in there. All right? So now we're going to check our database. And as it says, we want to check to see if the form has been, if it's been submitted. All right? And then we're going to put in our query. This is right now, with what we've got shown here, that's as close as what you get to parameter types of queries that you actually run in PDO. What I mean is, this is saying right there that it's not until I get down to that case that it's figuring out what that number is. So in other words, it's while the program is running, I'm able to go in and delete different customers. All right, so it's something that's happening, again, while the program is running. So it's happening at runtime. That's good. All right, because I'm not going to know ahead of time. The only way, if that didn't work, then I'd have to go in here and do this and figure out every customer I wanted to delete. But what's the problem with that? What's not showing on this screen right here? We went over this the other day. What's not on here? The ID. So I'd have to have the ability to go back into the database. All right. And if I've got the ability to go into the database, there's a chance I might go in there and do it anyway. But this is for people who don't have the ability to actually physically go into the database. So they can now come in and they can either edit a record or they can delete a record. And there's not a whole lot that's put on here. In other words, typically what we do is in order to be able to do this, you'd have to be logged in as an administrator. All right, because otherwise anybody could do this, and that'd be pretty darn scary. All right, they're just, I mean, this got longer than I thought it was going to be anyway. So we're attempting to delete with a limit 1, meaning we can only delete one customer at a time the way this is set up. So this is attempting to run the query, and it says if you ran it and it comes back with 1, that means that there was one row. You attempted to delete a row, and indeed there's one row. So if that's the case, the customer has been deleted. All right. Otherwise, something got screwed up. The customer could not be deleted. We could have changed this any way we wanted to change it. Again, I just kept it real simple. All right. If we didn't come back and it says the customer has not been deleted, that's if I come in here and say the no, and I click that. All right, that's that sure variable that when it comes back and it says here, are you sure? All right, that's the sure variable that is shown here. And, well, it's here. Okay. So if we get down to the bottom and you haven't submitted it yet, well, then we want to show the form. Okay? And we want to retrieve the customer's information. So now what we want to do is we want to grab just, all we're grabbing is the last name and the first name. So in other words, when we come in here, and let's pick somebody else. Yeah, there's a Zach. We'll delete them. All right. So the only thing we're showing is the customer's last name and the customer's first name. We're not showing any additional information. There's no need to do that. If for some reason we had to, we could show everything there is to show, but normally that's going to be enough. It's going to be the customer's name. The only way that wouldn't be is if you had many customers that had the same name. All right. So we could have put more stuff in there. Again, just to keep it simple, I just kept it at that. Then attempt to do it. And again, if the number of rows equal 1, okay, then we come in here and we're running through the same stuff in here that we talked about before. Are you sure you want to delete the customer? There's the radio button with the name of sure. All right, that's again going to have a value of yes or no. And notice that we default it to no. We're going to assume that the person doing this program doesn't know what the heck they're doing. That's not a bad assumption to make. Always err on the side of caution. And that's what we're doing right there. All right, otherwise, again, the page has been accessed in error. So that's it. Again, I'm not going to remove anything from here. We could, but I'm just not going to. The edit is very similar, except now, and we'll go through all of it in just a second, but notice that as you start to go through it, and maybe I went by it already, but there, it's an update. It's not a delete. So since it's an update, now we have to basically show the form with everything except the ID number. That they can't change. So again, if I come back in here and grabbing Zach, but this time saying with Zach edit, that's got to show me all the information. We don't know what is in there that we might want to change. And there's very few things that I checked in here for. I think I just checked to see if they were, make sure that they weren't empty. And then I think I ran it through like HTML special chars or something like that. All right, but when you look at what's in here, again, if you put some ungodly number in there, I have no way of knowing with what I currently have. All right, what would be a valid area code for Glendale, California? So I'm just assuming that the person who's going to be making these changes isn't going to sit there and change the name to something bizarre and that say that they're from Mars, etc. That kind of thing. All right, we could do something like that. Notice with the state, you got to manually put it in. It wouldn't have been that much. I've been doing that with the first year people, but to have had a drop-down box there, we could have done that. All right. But as you notice when we walk through this, much of the code is the same. Again, of course, the title changes. All right, now it's edit customer. But again, just like we looked at before, this is the exact same code as was in there before. Checking to make sure there's a valid user ID. And again, same kind of way. When we come in here, if I go back to home, page has been accessed in error. Why? Same kind of thing. We didn't put an ID in there. All right. So that's what this is checking for in here. If we get down to this, same stuff that we did before. But now, we've got that. Why do we have that? It's possible they're going to have errors when they put stuff in. Again, all we checked for was is it empty? Okay. And we did the trim, and we did, I guess it was real escape string. I could have done HTML special chars too. Check for empty first name, check for empty last name, check for empty street address, check for empty city, check for empty state, check for empty zip, check for empty area code, check for empty phone number. We could have come in there and checked to make sure, for example, that we could have forced you to put in an area code that was, we could have checked to make sure it was all numeric. We could have even done that with a phone number and then manually added the dash in there later. Something like that. But when you look at what's in here, the good news is virtually in fact, everything that's in here, they're all non-numeric fields. Even the fields that have numbers in them, like the zip code, is a non-numeric field. And you'd make that a non-numeric because it's possible that you're going to allow the person to put in the 5 digits dash 4 digits. So you probably wouldn't make that numeric. Really, the rule of thumb is the only field that you should make numeric ever is a field that's actually going to at least possibly be able to be used in calculations. There is not a field in this table right here that would ever be used for calculations. All right. So unless somebody stops me, I'm just going to keep babbling on. All right, so there's the edit and the delete. So let's go to orders. All right, again, change the title, bring the database up. All right, echo customer orders. So that line again in there is that line right here. To display a single customer order, etc. Boom. All right, and then we're building the form right here. Notice there's a hidden field in there that's called submitted, that's got a value of true, that we'll be able to check later. All right. And again, when we do this, so when we call this page out, if I click submit, now I'm looking undefined variable ID, okay? I must have tried running that test on it before. All right, that's all I can tell you. So let's look at that. No matching records found. So it's saying it was in line 40, right there. I should have actually done a check first. I should have checked if ID was equal to if empty ID. I shouldn't have done that. All right. So in other words, I really should have come in here and said if $ID, I could just use empty. If empty $ID echo no ID entered, nothing to query, or something like that. Else, and then come in here and done this. All the stuff that was in here. So I'd have to move all that stuff down, but I think you get the idea. And it would be something like that. Hopefully I didn't screw it up, but it's my copy, so even if I did, I don't care. But now if I come back here again and refresh, line 40 needed a $sign. You're right. Now it's giving me, well, because I know that someplace in here I screwed up that one. I wanted to go with how about this? We'll do this. Now I don't need that else, which will clean that up. And now I can remove this, which hopefully will clean up everything that I just screwed up. No ID entered, nothing to query. See that? which is what it should have done to begin with. In fact, now I need, so I come back up here, I go to orders, I don't submit anything, I hit enter. I'd have to clean this up, but I would get rid of this, and I would just change it to that. Does that make sense? All right. Now, if I run this, and I put in something that I don't think exists, it just says no matching records found, which is probably a pretty clean way to handle it when you think about it. All right. And I know there's a couple of them. I know that 123 has got a few. All right. And I know there's an order, and I know there's one for, I think it's 536. All right. So again, very much, there's I'm not saying there's a pattern, but a lot of these are very simple and similar rather in nature. So this is creating the form. As it says, if form has not been submitted, prompt the user to enter the customer's information. Otherwise, it has been submitted, so as it says, we're going to do minimal validation. I just added this, if it's empty, to do that. And no, it's funny because it is right here, order ID. And I think it's, I don't know, is it because we should have exited here or not? Let's try that. Because if that works, I can get rid of the other one that I put in. All right, and that's what you'd want to have happen. Nothing, operation terminated. So now I don't believe that I need this one that I added before, this if empty. So no order ID supplied, operation terminated. Good, that's what we want. And if we do put in something that's valid, all right, we get that. All right. So again, it's just an update query. We're only allowing you to update a record at a time. So we're grabbing that record, we're ending up filling up the form with the contents that are in there, and that's what we're doing right here. All right. Well, that's the headings. Then we're running the query, and notice did a little bit of stuff with changing the format of the dates so it looked a little prettier. All right. PHP has got about 10 or 15 different formats that you can use with dates. All right, this is just one of those. This is where we're actually grabbing that information. Okay. And again, if we access it, as it says, if there are no matching records found, so that's, again, as I showed you before, that's if we come in here. Okay. Now, hopefully that made at least some sense. So let's look at the order details. Remember the way that this database is set up. So if I come in here and put in 1, 2, 3, that's the order. So order 123 was placed on September 20th, 2013, shipped on September 22nd to customer 1004. All right, and the employee who handled it was employee 704. But now I can come up and I can find the details for 1, 2, 3 by clicking on order details and putting in the same number, 1, 2, 3. So that'll be everything that was ordered there. Does that make sense? And what I wanted to do, and just didn't have enough time to do it, was rather than having it print out on 6 different pages like this, I wanted all of it just to appear on here. All right. So I'd have to make those changes in order for that to be able to happen. So again, change the title, add our heading. Right away, come in there and bring up our database connection. Set the number of items to display to 1. Why? Because that's just 1 per page. In fact, I wonder if I change that to 10. Let's try it just for the heck of it. Knowing my luck, it'll have to change in more than one place, but that's okay. Nope. There's more than that, so that screwed it up. All right. The other thing, and I heard Mike L talking with Mike W today, where you guys were talking about sessions, there would be other ways that this could be implemented than the way that it was implemented. All right? Such as, if you look up on the screen here, what really would have been nice would be you click here, you put in 1, 2, 3. Okay, boom, you get that. Everybody gets this. But what would have been nice is if I would have taken the time to save that number, and once you click this, you wouldn't have to enter that again. It would bring up the stuff for the order that you just asked for. See what I'm saying? And if there wasn't anything in there, then you could have brought this screen up. Otherwise, you would have brought that up. Yes. There's a lot of ways that you can do that. Probably the easiest way, the question was, what if you wanted to, for lack of better words, save the order IDs that you typed in already? All right, probably the way that I would do it is, as you were doing that, I would take those and stick them into an array. All right, and have that array be a global array and have it be available, and then just literally put it in there as a drop down. But there's other ways that you can do that too. You know, when you think about it, one of the new HTML5 controls is the data list. I don't know if you've seen that one or not, but for instance, if I had names of states, okay, and I typed in an N, it would bring in that list. It would bring New York, New Jersey, North Carolina, etc. It would bring all of those. That might be an even cleaner way of doing it. Then you could put in a 1, etc., and you could have all the ones that start with a 1. So there's different ways that it could be done. All right. There's your page header for view order details. So again, that's this. Then we come through to get in orders, details, view it. So right here again, we are setting up the form. So that whole thing right there is this. All right. If it has been set, all right, now we want to come in and we want to say, well, did they put anything in there? We've already looked at this case. All right. Or did you leave it empty? So again, did we come in here and just click this? Again, another thing with an undefined variable, line 72. The same kind of check should have been made that I put into the other one. All right. In other words, where they have that in line 72, what we should have done here is after this, and I hate that word. All right. Should have said exit right here. That was left off inadvertently. So in other words, now when I come back here and I resubmit this, and you come into order details, and you put in 1, 2, 3. Oops, I got to put in something illegal. No matching records found. All right, and it's grabbing that from that no matching records found from down in, I think it's down way at the bottom in here. I don't know, I'd have to look for it, but it is grabbing that. All right. So again, what are we doing? We're figuring out then, we're running the query. And remember, now there's a good chance that this is going to return more than one record. These are the details. So one order could have many order items, which is what order details is. All right, so now what we're doing is we're saying if the affected rows is greater than or equal to 1. Previously, we were only allowing you to edit or delete one record at a time, but now we're not displaying, but we're saying how many order detail records do we have, so it's quite possible and plausible that it would be greater than 1. All right, then we're just again displaying it a record at a time. Okay, we're grabbing it, and again, all I'd have to do would be to change that number up there, and then instead of echoing this out like this, I have to put it into a table. The problem is, what if you have somebody who orders about 50 things? Do you want all those to show on one? And then you come in, then you've got to figure out, okay, well, how many do I want to display per page? And it's the same stuff we used before. Does it make sense to everyone that when you go back over here and you do this, and you figured out how to do 10 items per page, all right, that's probably going to be that's probably in there is going to be a function that you'd want to use more than once. So rather than putting it inside of the customers.php or the edit customer or whatever, we probably want to put that into some kind of a functions or whatever library folder, so we could use it on an as-needed basis. All right, then we just include that folder. That'd be a lot cleaner way of doing it. So this could be fixed in a lot of ways. It could be updated and upgraded in a lot of ways. And again, that figured out how many records were returned, so how many we'd need, and this is where I'd have to go back in and change that. If I ever get the time, I'll be happy to do that. And we looked at something like this before, checking for additional pages to display. So that's it. Like I said, I went through that quickly with you, but ideally at least you've got some kind of an idea now what happens to the customers page when you edit or delete a customer, when you go and show an order, and what happens when you go and show the details for a particular order. So next time we're going to look at the reports, and I'm going to implement a few different things where we'll create some very crude little reports. And if I think about it, Mike, I don't know because I've already started on these, but if I have time, I might even do something similar to what you said, as far as it would be kind of nice if I had a report in there that maybe a customer report, where you could put in whatever customer name you wanted, but then to have some kind of a drop-down list. And if you've got 100 customers, you don't want to drop down with 100 things in there because people won't remember who they are. We could put the name in, but that's still hard to iterate your way through. But if you've got a thing of favorite customers and you kept that in there, that would be a nice thing to have. All right. So hopefully we'll look at some iteration of that. So we've gone through home, customers edit, customers delete, orders, and order details, and we will do the reports next class. All right. That's all that I had.